Sleeper awake immediately makes me think of that passage in Matthew's Gospel that says, "Sleepers awake, the bridegroom cometh," which a German composer made a hymn out of in 1598, coincidentally during the epidemic of the plague that was hitting the area. Bach wrote a number of pieces that were takeoffs on that tune, including this organ piece that I pulled out this morning. I first just play the opening section. Of course, at home at the piano I don't have pedals to play notes with, so I do two of the parts and then later I sing the other one to see how everything fits together. Later in the afternoon, I looked at the whole piece and I thought, shouldn't it be played with more of a feeling of, hey, wake up? You might wonder if I wasn't playing a little free and loose with what Bach wrote. And is that allowed? After all, Bach is as close as music gets to being the Word of God, and you don't change God's words, do you? Of course, you might translate them from Aramaic into Greek, and then into Latin, not to mention English, and then into more modern English. And what happens if after doing all that, you still don't understand what it means that everything that becomes visible is light. What do you do to get inside whatever that means? Well, a musician's way starts in the faith that what was written, the lines and notes that the composer scratched onto paper, were put there to point to some important experience of the composers. You might think it would be convenient if those notes and lines pointed to exactly how to play the piece. But if it's a piece of music that has depth in it, the lines, instead of pointing, it's like they radiate. The more you look, the more directions you see you might take as a path through those notes. Because getting acquainted with a piece is like walking through a forest. You might have been there before, but the experience may be different each time. And you lose your way sometimes. A marker that you were supposed to pass by, a particular note that the composer wrote. What happened to it? How come you didn't play it? And the next time you take the trip, there's no forest at all. It's a garden or a seashore. And the markers in the forest are now pebbles on the sand. Or waves. So life's unpredictability leaves only the opportunity of following the wave. And if that brings you to a meaningful experience, but not to a complete understanding, you gratefully embark once more. And in that way, you familiarize yourself with different facets of the piece. Is your knowledge of the piece ever complete? Do you ever conquer it? Does its fascination finally fade under the attack from your intelligence? If it does, it's not one of the immortal pieces. In the same way, when I read the words, "Everything exposed by the light becomes visible," for everything that becomes visible is light, I'm confused. Being a musician, I look away from the page and I think, everything exposed to the light, the divine light, everything that basks in that light is illuminated and becomes a source of light. So maybe the Apostle Paul was saying, if you open yourself to the light, you will become a source of light to others. Or, as the light permeates your earthly being, you are enlightened. And that kind of playing with the sounds of those words as a quest for the meanings that they might contain is what I was doing this morning and this afternoon to understand, to stand under Bach's light.